Section 7 of Poems of American History, the Colonial Era. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Sinead Vaughan. Poems of American History, the Colonial Era, Chapter 2, In the Wake of Columbus, Part 2. The Spaniards, meanwhile, had pushed on across the Caribbean Sea and founded Darien, whither in 1510 came one Vasco Núñez Balboa. He made numerous explorations, and, learning from the Indians that there was a great sea to the south, determined to search for it. He started from Darien September the 1st, 1513, and on the 25th reached the top of a mountain from which he first saw the Pacific. He gained the shore 4 days later, and, wading into the water, took possession of it for the King of Spain. Balboa, September the 25th, 1513. With restless step of discontent, day after day he fretting went along the old accustomed ways that led to easeful length of days. But far beyond the fragrant shade of orange groves, his glances strayed to where the white horizon line caught from the sea its silvery shine. He knew the taste of that salt spray, he knew the wind that blew that way. Ah, once again to mount and ride upon that pulsing ocean tide. To find new lands of virgin gold, to wrest them from the savage hold, to conquer with the sword and brain fresh fields and fair for royal Spain. This was the dream of wild desire that set his gallant heart on fire and stirred with feverish discontent that soul for nobler issues meant. Sometimes his children's laughter brought a thrill that checked his restless thought. Sometimes a voice more tender yet would soothe the fever and the fret. Thus, day by day, until one day came news that in the harbour lay a ship bound outward to explore the treasures of that western shore, which bold adventurers as yet had failed to conquer or forget. Yet where they failed and failing died, my will shall conquer, Balboa cried. But when on Darien's shore he stepped, and fast and far his vision swept, he saw before him, white and still, the Andes mocking at his will. Then like a flint he set his face, let others falter from their place, his hand and foot, his sturdy soul, should seek and gain that distant goal. With speech like this he fired the land, and gathered to his bold command a troop of 20 score or more, to follow where he led before. They followed him day after day, o'er burning lands where ambushed lay the waiting savage in his lair, and fever poisoned all the air. But like a sweeping wind of flame, a conqueror, through all he came, the savage fell beneath his hand, or led him on to seek the land, that richer yet for golden gain, stretched out beyond the mountain chain. Steep after steep of rough ascent, they followed, worn and spent, until at length they came to where the last peak lifted, near and fair. Then Balboa turned and waved aside his panting troops. "Rest here," he cried, "and wait for me." And with a tread of trembling haste he quickly sped across the trackless height, alone to seek to reach his mountain throne. Step after step he mounted swift, the wind blew down a cloudy drift. From some strange source he seemed to hear the music of another sphere. Step after step the cloud winds blew their blinding mists, then through and through, sun cleft, they broke, and all alone he stood upon his mountain throne. Before him spread no paltry lands to wrest with spoils from savage hands, but, fresh and fair, an unknown world of mighty sea and shore unfurled. Its wondrous scroll beneath the skies, ah, what to this, the flimsy prize of golden lands for which he came, with hot ambition's sordid aim? Silent he stood with streaming eyes, in that first moment of surprise. Then on the mountain top he bent, this conqueror of a continent, in wordless ecstasy of prayer, forgetting in that moment there with nature's God brought face to face all vainer dreams of pomp and place. Thus to the world a world was given, where lesser men had vainly striven and striving died. This gallant soul, divinely guided, reached the goal. Nora Perry. In 1518, a great expedition under Hernando Cortes sailed from Cuba in search of a land of marvelous wealth, which was said to exist somewhere north of Darien. The result was the discovery of Mexico, which the Spaniards subdued with indescribable cruelties. With Cortes in Mexico, 1519. Mater Dios preserve us, and give us the Mexican gold. Viva España forever! Light-hearted, treacherous, bold, with clashing of drums and of cymbals, with clatter of hoofs and of arms, into the Tezcucan city, over the Tezcucan farms, in through the hordes of Aztecs, past glitter of city and lake, brave for death or for conquest, and the Mother of God's sweet sake. Perchance from distant Granada, perchance from the Danube's far blue, he had fought with Moor and Saracen, where the death hail of battlefields flew. Down through the smoke and the battle, trolling an old Moorish song, chanting an Ave or a Pater to whiten the red of his wrong. Dreaming of Seville, Toledo, and dark, soft Catholic eyes, light-hearted, reckless, and daring, he rides under Mexican skies. Child of valor and fortune, nurtured to ride and to strike, fearless in defeat or in conquest, of man and of devil alike. Out through the clamor of battle, up through rivers of blood, Viva España forever, God and the bold brotherhood. Strike for the memories left us, strike for the lives that we keep, strike for the present and future, in the name of our comrades who sleep. Strike for Jesus' sweet mother, for the arms and the vows that we hold. Strike for fortune and lover, God and the Mexican gold. At morning gay, careless in battle, with love on his lips, in his eyes, at even stretched pallid and silent, out under Mexican skies. And far in some old Spanish city, two dark eyes wait patient and long, for a lover who sailed to the westward, trolling an old Moorish song. W. W. Campbell. Shortly afterwards, Pizarro completed the conquest of Peru. Heavily laden treasure ships were sent homeward across the Atlantic, and at last the Spanish lust of gold seemed in a fair way to be satisfied. The lust of gold from the West Indies. Rapacious Spain followed her heroes' triumphs over the main, her hardy sons in fields of battle tried, where Moor and Christian desperately died. A rabid race, fanatically bold, and steeled to cruelty by lust of gold, traversed the waves, the unknown world explored. The cross their standard, but their faith the sword. Their steps were graves, o'er prostrate realms they trod, they worshipped Mammon while they vowed to God. Let nobler bards in loftier numbers tell how Cortes conquered, Montezuma fell, how fierce Pizarro's ruffian arm o'erthrew the sun's resplendent empire in Peru, how, like a prophet, old Las Casas stood, and raised his voice against a sea of blood whose chilling waves recoiled while he foretold his country's ruin by avenging gold. That gold, for which unpitied Indians fell, that gold at once the snare and scourge of hell, thenceforth by righteous heaven was doomed to shed unmingled curses on the spoiler's head. For gold, the Spaniard cast his soul away, his gold and he were every nation's prey. But themes like these would ask an angel lyre, language of light and sentiment of fire. Give me to sing in melancholy strains of cherub martyrdoms and negro chains. One race by tyrants rooted from the earth, one doomed to slavery by the taint of birth. Dreadful as hurricanes, athwart the main rushed the fell legions of invading Spain, with fraud and force, with false and fatal breath, submission, bondage, and resistance death. They swept the isles. In vain the simple race kneeled to the iron sceptre of their grace, or with weak arms their fiery vengeance braved. They came, they saw, they conquered, they enslaved, and they destroyed. The generous heart they broke. They crushed the timid neck beneath the yoke. Where'er to battle marched, their fell array, the sword of conquest ploughed resistless way. Where'er from cruel toil they sought repose, around the fires of devastation rose. The Indian, as he turned his head in flight, beheld his cottage flaming through the night, and, midst the shrieks of murder on the wind, heard the mute bloodhound's death step close behind. The conflict o'er, the valiant in their graves, the wretched remnant dwindled into slaves, condemned in pestilential cells to pine, delving for gold amidst the gloomy mine. The sufferer, sick of life-protracting breath, inhaled with joy the fire-damp blast of death. Condemned to fell, the mountain palm on high, that cast its shadow from the evening sky. Ere the tree trembled to his feeble stroke, the woodman languished, and his heartstrings broke. Condemned in torrid noon with palsied hand, to urge the slow plough o'er the obdurate land. The labourer smitten by the sun's quick ray, a corpse, along the unfinished furrow lay. O'erwhelmed at last with ignominious toil, mingling their barren ashes with the soil, down to the dust the cherub people pass, like autumn foliage withering in the blast. The whole race sunk beneath the oppressor's rod, and left a blank among the works of God. James Montgomery. Although Pope Alexander VI had, in 1493, issued a bill dividing the New World between Spain and Portugal, neither France nor England paid any heed to it. One of France's most active corsairs was Giovanni de Verrazzano. In 1524, he crossed the Atlantic and, sighting the coast at Cape Fear, turned northward, discovering the Hudson, landed at Rhode Island, and kept on, perhaps, as far as Newfoundland. Verrazzano, at Rhodes and Rhode Island, 1524. In the tides of the warm south wind it lay, and its grapes turned wine in the fires of noon, and its roses blossomed from May to May, and their fragrance lingered from June to June. There dwelt old heroes at Ilium farmed, there bards reclusive of olden odes, and so fair were the fields of roses, they named the bright sea garden the Isle of Rhodes. Fair temples graced each blossoming field, and columned halls in gems arrayed. Night shaded the sea with her jewelled shield, and sweet the lyres of Orpheus played. The Helios spanned the sea, its flame drew hither the ships of Pelion's pines, and twice 1,000 statues of fame stood mute in twice 1,000 shrines. And her mariners went, and her mariners came, and sang on the seas the olden odes, and at night they remembered the Helios flame, and at morn the sweet fields of the roses of Rhodes. From the palm land's shade to the land of pines, a Florentine crossed the western sea. He sought new lands and golden mines, and he sailed neath the flag of fleur-de-lis. He saw at last in sunset's gold a wonderful island so fair to view that it seemed like the island of roses old, that his eyes in his wondering boyhood knew. 'Twas summer-time, and the glad birds sung in the hush of noon in the solitudes. From the oak's broad arms the green vines hung, sweet odours blew from the resinous woods. He rounded the shores of the summer sea, and he said as his feet the white sands pressed, and he planted the flag of the fleur-de-lis, I have come to the island of Rhodes in the west. While the mariners go and the mariners come, and sing on lone waters the olden odes of the Grecian seas and the ports of Rome, they will ever think of the roses of Rhodes. To the isle of the west he gave the name of the isle he had loved in the Grecian sea, and the Florentine went away as he came, neath the silver flag of the fleur-de-lis. O fair Rhode Island, thy guest was true, he felt the spirit of beauteous things. The sea-wet roses were faint and few, but memory made them the gardens of kings. The Florentine corsairs sailed once more out into the west o'er a rainy sea, in search of another wonderful shore for the crown of France and the fleur-de-lis. But returned no more the Florentine brave to the courtly knights of fair Rochelle. Neath the lilies of France he found a grave, and not neath the roses he loved so well. But the lessons of beauty his fond heart bore from the gardens of God were never lost, and the fairest name of the eastern shore bears the fairest isle of the western coast. Hezekiah Butterworth. End of section 7.